So let's continue the assembly. I finally got the fuel pump. It was delivered just last night, so now we're going to install it. So today is the 8th, May 8th. I was supposed to get the pump on May 4th, so there's a 4-day delay. Let me show you what caused this delay. So here are the old part plunger pairs, delivery valves, and these inserts from the injectors, as well as the bearings. You can see the condition of the bearing and how badly it was worn out. And the problem was that these parts were not in stock, so we had to order them and wait. That's why the repair took so long. Now I have the pump, but I haven't checked the injectors yet. By the way, the injectors are ready too. They also have new nozzles. So what are my next steps? I'll replace this sealing ring, put a gasket on the oil channel, and what other problem do I have? We can see that there is wear on the pump itself. So right here, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but there's a step. It's literally about 1/10 or 2 of a millimeter. And if we look at the block, we also see a small indentation, also about 1/10.5 to 2/10 of a millimeter. Okay, let's switch to the other camera. I want to show you what this wear looks like. So here's the step. And this is how the wear looks on the block itself. So, why does this happen? The mounting bolts get loose and the pump starts to move around a little bit. It moves just a few hundredths or tenths of a millimeter, plus water, plus some dirt, and maybe something else. And as a result, it creates this kind of groove for itself. So this kind of wear happens, and honestly, it happens pretty often. There's really no way to avoid it, because the pump is big and heavy. The support area is just this little piece here. This is the whole support area for the pump. At this point, it's just resting on the rubber. So this pump is the biggest and heaviest one. Plus there's extra force applied as well. So why is this dangerous? What could this lead to for us? The pump will end up sitting a bit lower, and there won't be any gap in this drive gear and this gear. If there's no gap, it starts to grind down this gear. There have actually been cases like this. So what do I want to do? I want to cut out a piece from a beer can. Basically a piece of tin about 3/10 of a millimeter thick. Glue it here, then cover everything with sealant and install the pump. Well, there are no other options, otherwise I'd have to replace the pump housing. So now I'll look for some tin, maybe copper sheet, maybe an aluminum can. As a last resort, if I can't find anything, I'll just cut off a dipstick. The dipstick is 0.3 and I'll put it here. Now I'll set it to 14 degrees on the flywheel. I'll set it. Well, like I said, I'll change the rubber seal. Now I'll deal with this tin, glue the gasket, and we'll install the pump. So I've installed the pump for now without gaskets or anything, just to see what kind of clearance I'll have. And we can see that it's tight, but there's no movement at all. So I still need to put at least 2/10 in there to have at least a little bit of play. So I took a beer can, cut it and measured it. The thickness is 0.1, so that's 1/10. I made 2 layers of this gasket, put them in there, tightened it up, and we can see that a gap has appeared, just a tiny one, not even a 10, maybe a 100th. But now we have some play. That's how it's supposed to be. So I'll also show you the compressor. You can see the compressor drive gear, and there's also some play. Alright, so I'll leave it like that. 2/10 is quite enough. Now I'm removing the pump, putting in the gaskets, and this is how it looks under the pump. So I apply glue in 2 layers. One layer is held by the glue and the second just by the bend. That's it. I'll leave it like that. I'll also put a little sealant on top here. Well, if anyone knows a more effective way, everything here has put schist, or somehow, I don't know. If anyone knows another way to get out of this situation, is a simple schist, then it is. Write it in the comments, it would be interesting to read. And preferably not just theory about what could be done somehow, but preferably from practical experience, who has already faced this. And how did you get out of this situation? Let's check again. I've tightened all 4 bolts. We see the first cylinder at top dead center on the camshaft. Now let's check compression on the flywheel. We see 10-15. It's installed, so I'm closing the cover and installing the injectors next. I've applied this copper grease to the injector body itself. It's rated up to 1000 degrees. I used to have a spray, but it ran out, so this kind works too. I applied this paste to the injector body and the nut. Ceramic paste from Ferdinand Bilstein is a really good thing. I like it, but honestly, it's very expensive. When I was disassembling engines, these washers were installed. Actually, I never put them in myself, although they're supposed to be on all engines, but honestly, I don't see much point in them. So, supposedly, it covers this guide where the injector is inserted. The injector goes in and it covers this guide. Yeah, so in any case, if moisture gets in, it comes not only through the guide, but also through the nut itself. That's why I usually don't install them. Well, since they were installed on this engine, it's basically fine. I decided to put them on and at the same time show in the video that these little flags exist. I've installed the injectors and I'm now tightening the nuts. the pump is installed and tightened. I've put it in place. The injectors are also tightened. I put this cover on and closed it. Before closing the cover, I checked the ignition one more time. So everything's good, everything's great, so we're done with this part. So what am I going to do next? I'll probably put this tube here, bend it a little. I won't use a hose, just a solid tube without a hose. Then I'll make another tube for this spot as well. So the air supply, the T-fitting is already there. I have the hoses, but I'll do all that later. After painting, after starting it up. Then I'll put the hose back on and add the high pressure tubes to it. So what else did I want to show? Here I already have the transfer case disassembled. I had to take it apart complete, but I won't say anything about it for now. There will be a separate episode about repairing this transfer case on the channel later. So I washed the filter, took out the old filter, cleaned everything inside and blew it out. I was going to install it, but as I tried to put it in, I see the cylinder is in the way. Now I need to think about where else to put the filter. So now I want to try unscrewing these two bolts and shifting it to this side. So as usual with these modifications, it just takes so much time, I have no words for it. Basically, I've already been working here for 3 hours, again 3 hours. I thought I'd start the engine by now, but 3 hours have passed and almost nothing has been done yet. I'm showing you the bracket. The bracket didn't fit, it was hitting the cylinder, so I took it off and cut off the extra parts, let's say the unnecessary pieces. There was also this piece here. I cut all of that off. Alright, I think it fits now. I added a washer here so it would sit a bit higher, so the hoses don't fit again. I started making hoses for this spot. Actually made a different longer hose. The one that was here, I put it over here. The one that was originally here is way too short. It doesn't fit anywhere. So I installed the return line, also the return line to the pump. I think I got the coolant pipe to fit just a little bit here, but I still need to adjust it a bit more. Yeah, I installed the supply line too. So from the tank it goes here through a small pump. Everything's set up. But now I'm wondering how to fit the breather, since the pipe's in the way again. I brought the breather, so let's unpack it and check it out. Yeah, the pipe's in the way. I'll remove it, install the breather, and then decide what to do with the pipe. I bent the pipe until it broke, then found a stainless steel one. It was tough, but I bent and installed it. Now everything's fine. The coolant is connected to the compressor, and here are the air pipes. I've discussed this many times and won't revisit it. When I'm done, I'll show you, so what should I show next? This is our supply line. I haven't tightened it yet. I'll put the hose on now. The fuel supply and return are all here. I've already connected everything. I just need to install a new filter. So the engine will run on this oil, LUKOIL Avantgarde Semi-Synthetic 1040. So I poured in about 31, 8.5 gallons of oil. If you check the dipstick, it already shows above the level. I don't know if the dipstick isn't original or what, honestly, I don't know. That's specifically for this engine. I don't have the data on how much oil should be here. But when I drained it, there was about 30 liters, maybe 29, 31, somewhere in that range. So for now, I poured in 31. Let's see now. I installed the starter and connected the battery. So now I'm checking how it's going to turn over. Well, I'll just check and turn it over. The battery works, but I haven't installed the sensor yet. The oil and diesel aren't connected, and I still need to make the spacer. Alright, so I'm completely ready. Everything is set up, everything is adjusted, so I'll briefly tell you what was done. I connected everything. So this is my tank for now. I made the return line into a separate bottle. Now I'll pump it so some diesel comes out of the pump. Well, I've been doing it this way lately to flush the system a little bit. So this is my supply from the tank. Manual priming, low pressure pump, then the filter. From the filter to the pump, and the return line, a return from the injectors, return line. So here I hung it a bit on a chain, kind of as a safety measure. And here I made these braces on nails. Basically everything was done quickly because I already spent the whole day. It's 6 post-meridium at work since 10 in the morning without lunch. Here everything is also on braces and nails. The starter and battery are connected and it cranks well. That's it. So what am I doing now? Bleeding? No, first I'll have some tea, then I'll bleed it and try to start it. Alright, that's it. I had some tea. Put on new gloves, charge the camera. Now let's bleed everything and try it. All right, I've bled everything, checked the oil, filled up the water, so let's try everything out. Alright, so what can I say? Basically everything is good, it works well, runs smoothly. There's a bit of smoke, but that's understandable. First of all the lubricant is burning off, there's a lot of that red grease, oil and so on. There will be smoke anyway, because the grease is burning off. Plus it's cold, you still need to heat it up to operating temperature and then see how it will work. Basically everything is fine. So it turns out I started about 3 times, and as for the diesel I didn't even use half a liter. I didn't even warm up too much. As you can see, it's on 40-45 degrees. Basically, everything is fine. So, according to the dipstick, even now after running it through the system, it's still above the level. So either the dipstick isn't original, or the oil pan, well, it doesn't look small visually. It should hold about 30 liters. Plus, I drained 30 liters. I have some data, but it's not specifically for this engine model. It might be a completely different oil pan. For example, like the 2866 on one engine, it's 26, 27, and on another it's 35 or even 37. So there's a difference. It all depends on the oil pan, the engine brand, and the engine model. But we'll clarify this point later, it's just a minor detail. So I'll start it up one more time, and basically I'll remove everything, all these pipes and everything, get rid of this diesel. In general, the sensors, all of that will be removed, and I'll get it ready for painting. Alright, so it looks like I prepared everything for painting. As usual, I've covered everything everywhere, like under the manifolds, for example, and over the threads and so on. So, as usual, if a little paint gets on the clutch basket, it's no big deal. I also covered the plates on the pump here, and I covered the plate on the engine under the starter, the grooves, the sensors, and so on. Basically, that's it. My engine is ready. Here we have primer with hardener, and this is the paint. So for now I won't show what color it is. The color is interesting. Neither the gearbox, nor the engine, nor anything else. I haven't painted anything in this color before. As for the color, I'll explain. I don't choose the paint myself, I just buy it. The paint is not my choice. So whatever they brought, that's what we'll use to paint. We'll see how it turns out. I'm curious to see how the engine looks in this color. I'll repeat, I haven't seen it yet or had this color before. Well, you can pause the video and write your guess about the color in the comments. Alright, now I'm going to mix the primer, hang up the engine and get started.
Right, so this is the primer and now the paint. I don't know how it's going to look. I'm really curious myself. Anyway, let's go.
Alright, so I'm continuing the assembly. installing all sorts of hoses, tubes, pipes, and so on. As for the compressor, as I remember, I only had the coolant pipes done. Now I've set up the air supply. So I installed a T-joint here for the air outlet. And this is the original tube. And here, we made this kind of hose. We couldn't come up with any other solution. There were no other options, so we made this hose. Basically, everything should be fine. I've already installed the tube. I had to make this kind of extension here because the tube fit a bit differently. But overall, everything is fine, everything is ready. So, what else do I need to do next? I need to install the exhaust manifold and the power steering pump. So, I've prepared the manifold, pulled the surface a bit, got the gaskets ready. I took the manifolds to the welder, he cut out the partitions. There was a damper here for the engine brake, and we can see some corrosion on these surfaces. I've already cleaned it up, so there's nothing more I can do. By the way, there were homemade gaskets here before, but now we'll have factory gaskets. They're thick and soft like this, so I think they'll seal well. Alright, now as for the power steering pump, I'm fitting it like this, and we can see the pipes don't fit again. But at this point, it doesn't really matter. There's nothing else I can redo here anyway. Now I'll install the new pump, unscrew the pipes, and the pipes will go, I don't know, maybe like this, maybe like that. I installed the pipes. Basically, I clamped them together somewhere around here because they all ended up crossing over each other and so on. I inserted the rubber seals, tightened them with a clamp, added another clamp and tightened again. The only thing is that these pipes were a bit lower. I just looked at a photo of the engine before it was disassembled, and these pipes were almost lying right on the fuel lines, so they were about 1 9/16 inches lower. But I don't think the cap drops down right up against the engine. I think there's still a gap of about 21 foot here, but so I think everything will be fine. So we ended up with this kind of assembly of pipes here. I checked everything and there's clearance everywhere, so nothing is touching. There's space everywhere and so on. Well, it can't be done any better. I did what I could, that's all I can do. In all this time, while I've been struggling with these pipes, I feel like I could have assembled the gearbox already. Definitely, my engine is assembled, but I still need to install the alternator. There's also a branch coming off here. The aluminum part is secured with 2 bolts. The frame is close and the engine is heavy. Any contact with the frame could cause serious damage. It's best to assemble everything in place. Now about the prices. So for parts for this engine, 407,000 rubles were spent. 407,000 rubles. The most expensive part is the piston group. One set costs 17,000 and we need 10 sets, so that's 170,000. Well, naturally, if this were, say, a 6-cylinder engine, it would obviously be cheaper. So what else do we have here that's the most expensive? After the piston group, the next most expensive part is the clutch. That's the flywheel, the pressure plate, the disc, the release bearing, and the flywheel bearing. So all of that cost about 52,000 rubles. So that makes 170 plus 52. That's 222,000 in total for the engine. Everything else is 180,000 rubles. And that 180,000 includes the power steering pump. Modifying the compressor, that means we changed the crankshaft, plus 1 more cylinder, plus 2 connecting rods, plus a bearing, bushing inserts, and so on. That's included in the 180,000. The compressor modification cost around 20,000 rubles. And also included in the 180,000 are all the mounts. That is 2 front ones, 2 rear ones, 4 mounts in total. That was also about 20,000 rubles. Now regarding the fuel pump, the repair of the fuel pump and injectors together, including labor and parts, cost 96,000 rubles. Well, plus there's also head resurfacing and bushing boring. That's for the rods, that's somewhere else. Well, I don't know exactly. About 10,000 rubles, roughly speaking. This engine cost 10,000 rubles. If you also consider that there will be repairs for the gearbox, 2 gearboxes, plus repairs for the transfer case, you can imagine what the final amount will be. Yes, for this repair, the repair of this car. So this turns out to be the last episode in the series about this engine, so there won't be an installation for now. As I already mentioned, now I'll be working on the gearbox, and we'll have a series about the gearbox from this car. Probably 2 episodes, one on this assembly, the other on assembly. There will also be a video about the transfer case, but there are still some questions about it. For now, I won't get ahead of myself. I'll just say that there are some questions. Also, let me remind you to like and comment under this video. Let me remind you that these are the main algorithms of YouTube. So if anyone supports this video with a like or a comment, thank you very much. Well, that's it for this video. That's how the repair of the 10-cylinder engine turned out. That's how the series turned out. Thank you all for watching. Good luck to everyone, and goodbye.